Welcome to the Crop Insurance Podcast. I'm Mike Rydell, a third-generation crop insurance agent here to make federal crop insurance less confusing and more useful. Whether you're a seasoned grower or just getting started, we're here to help you stay covered and confident in every season. Today's episode is brought to you by the Crop West Insurance Group, your agent-friendly crop insurance group. If you want more support, smarter marketing, and better tools to help grow your agency, Crop West's expert team has your back. Visit cropwestinsurance.com to level up today. Crop West Insurance is an equal opportunity provider and employer. Welcome to the Crop Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rydell, and today we have a very special guest, Alex Offerdahl. Today's guest has spent his career making risk management less daunting for farmers. Alex is the managing partner and crop insurance division head at Watts & Associates, a Billings-based agricultural economics and consulting firm. Since 2008, he has led a team that has developed more than 15 new federal crop insurance products, representing roughly $1 billion in annual premiums. Alex's passion for agricultural risk management grew out of his own experience. He was raised on a small grain and cattle ranch in northern Montana and still returns to help planting and harvest. That hands-on background gives him a producer's perspective when he designs insurance programs and analyzes farm economics. Alex holds a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Education from Montana State University.
Go Bobcats!
Go Grizz, and a Master of Agribusiness from Kansas State University. He's widely recognized as a national leader in crop insurance. He's testified before the United States House Agricultural Committee, highlighting that crop insurance reaches more farmers, more crops, and more counties than any other USDA program. And he travels across North America speaking about emerging risk management trends and policy changes. His mission is clear: to help farmers manage the ever-shifting risks of weather, markets, and policy. Please join me in welcoming Alex Offerdahl.
Thanks, Mike.
You bet. So Alex, is there anything we missed there? Anything you want to add on your background or?
No, just you did your homework. That's quite a, it sounds more daunting than it is. I generally introduce myself as a farm kid who spent too much time in grad school and spends most of my day dreaming up ways to help crop insurance do a better job of helping producers protect themselves. So that's what we've done over the last 20 years now: create new federal crop insurance products and make them as broadly available as we can, each designed to solve a specific current problem that producers face. It starts with thinking about what's happening on your own farm and what risks you face, and then seeing if you can develop a tool that helps address those in a new and better way.
And so I thought today and it's kind of timely as at the time of recording, we're in the middle of September. And for a lot of producers out there, they understand that sales closing is coming up, and that is September 30th. I know I'm meeting with all the farmers that I work with, explaining new coverage levels, new options, the impact of the one big beautiful bill and the subsidy changes. And there's just a whole host of information that these farmers need to know. And something that a lot of producers don't know about, maybe have only heard rumors about, or isn't as common as some of these other programs, is MCO. And so I thought what we would do is just give a brief overview and kind of explaining it. I'll give a high level, then I thought I'd have you jump in and give your obviously expert explanation. In a little more detail, we'll have some questions we can go through, because again, the goal here is to educate the listener, whether that be a farmer who's looking to make a decision or a crop insurance agent that's looking to increase their knowledge on this so that they can educate their growers. So if you listen to this podcast, I think that it's very helpful if you already understand ECO and SCO. I think that's kind of a crucial understanding that you can have, an understanding MCO. And then also margin protection. It's kind of a blend of those products, I would say, in terms of just looking at it from a very high level. Again, with MCO, that is now it's not available on every crop in every state and every county. It's select rollout going to different crops in different counties. And we'll post a list on our website at the cropinsurancepodcast.com. But if you want just amazing resource, we're just going to point you to margincoverageoption.com, Alex's website, where there's just everything you could ever want to know. But at the end of the day, MCO, like ECO and SCO, is an area risk plan. So what that means is whatever your area is in, if that has a loss, then you're going to have a loss. Now, your particular farm or operation could suffer a loss and potentially not collect on MCO because it's area risk. Now, like ECO and SCO, when you get paid is based on your area, but how much you get paid is based on you. If you buy it and your neighbor buys it, you're going to have different levels of coverage in terms of the dollar amount because it's based on the acres you seed and your approved yield when you're coming up with the dollar of coverage. So it's very similar to ECO and SCO in that regard. Also similar to ECO and SCO, when you go to factor out your loss, you're looking at expected area yields and final area yields. And those two yields are the exact same. They're using the ECO and SCO expected area yields and final area yields. And the timing of the billing and the timing of the payment is the same as ECO and SCO. So you're going to most likely pay your premium and wait until the middle of May or whenever those final area yields are determined. And that's when you would collect that payment. Now, like ECO and SCO, now this is a personal thing. We always recommend when evaluating these programs, give it time. Take it for a couple of years. You can look at the math, and just like these other area risk products, you tend to get more out of it that you put into it when you look at the larger scope of time. Now, MCO is going to sit at either 95 or 90% on top of your federal crop insurance program down to that 86% coverage level, exactly like ECO. You can choose 90 or 95. I know most producers are going to want to protect as shallow a loss as possible, and you're going to be looking at 95%. Now, along with ECO and SCO, the one big, beautiful bill, the premium subsidy for MCO is at 80%, just like ECO and SCO. Now, where they start to differ is you're going to calculate your expected margin, which is going to use that area yield that we spoke about earlier, and MCO's harvest or projected price or harvest price, depending on your underlying crop insurance policy, whether you're in revenue protection or yield protection. You have your expected margin. You go to harvest, it looks at the final area yield. You compare your expected margin with the actual margin. You figure out a payment factor, and you either collect or you don't collect. Now, that is about as high level as you could possibly get. And I don't want to dive into any of the weeds because we have Alex here. So Alex, where did I go wrong? Where did I go right? What could help better explain this to our listeners?
So I don't think you missed anything in terms of how the basic fundamentals of the program operate. But I would emphasize that the difference between a margin-based policy and a revenue-based policy is the incorporation of input costs. At this point, many producers have very few tools available to them to allow them to manage the risk that's associated with the cost of the inputs. Over the last several years, and if you're following any of the things in the ag media over the last couple of months in particular, producers are decrying the squeeze that they face. And it's a margin-based squeeze. We've watched prices slowly wander lower over the last several years. At the same time, we've seen input costs remain stubbornly high. And that means that we've got a meaningful squeeze on our margins. A revenue-based policy does a nice job of protecting us from price decline. This year, for most major commodities, we're looking at a big price decline, particularly on the corn side, between what we projected last spring and where we're looking to land this fall. Most commodities will have their harvest price start discovery here on October 1st in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have some big price-based declines. But what we aren't capturing is the fact that input costs have not been declining at anywhere close to the same rate as the revenues that we receive. And margin protection and margin coverage option are both designed to try to provide producers a tool that allows them some level of management against that squeeze that comes with the potential that input costs could rise or stay the same time revenues decrease. So margin coverage option, like margin protection before it, is designed to allow producers to lock in a level of security based on expected input prices. And we'll talk about specifically which inputs we're talking about. It's not all of your costs. And to be frank, it's not your costs. It's rather indexes of prices of commonly incurred expenses for inputs. If those increase, or if your prices decrease, or if your yield decreases, these margin-based policies can pay out indemnities for any of those things. And because of the earlier price discovery window, we're determining expected values in August and September rather than for spring planted commodities waiting for the month of February. It gives us an early look at where we expect those prices to land. MCO, like MP, is only available for spring crops right now, and I imagine your listeners just sort of turned off the podcast in protest because it's not yet available for winter wheat. I apologize for that. I can assure you my friends and neighbors in Ponderay County, Montana are as frustrated with that as anyone else. At this point, we've not come up with a good way to get projected prices and volatilities that drive those insurance policies for winter wheat yet. Those markets just are very thin at the period of time when we'd be doing discovery. But to me, the essential difference between the enhanced coverage option and SCO, which we expect almost every producer in the US is going to take this year based on the incentives that are set up for them, and MCO, is your concern about margin and your feeling about price now versus where you fear or expect those prices could be at the end of February and the guarantees that are going to be available to you then. If you think costs could go higher or stay the same, and if you think prices could fall, then a margin-based policy like MCO could make a lot of sense in the next couple of weeks. If you think prices still have some room to move up, or if you think input costs are at an all-time high and can only go down, then probably keep your powder dry and wait to take a look at ECO in the spring. But having both of those options available to you and finally having a tool that allows you to lock in some level of security against where we could be with input costs is really what the design of MCO was all about.
One of the things that comes up as I speak with growers that I work with, everybody's excited about the increase in subsidies on all the crop insurance programs and that their cost is going to go down, assuming that they stay at the same coverage level for insurance products. But the margin has continued to shrink year after year after year. And the conversations are getting more and more difficult with growers as they're looking at what they're planting versus what it's worth versus what the different input costs are, seed costs, fertilizer, all these different costs. And these programs like margin protection and MCO kind of help fill that void where there hasn't been anything like it before. And I know if you're listening to this and you're a winter wheat producer, like Alex said, don't turn it off, learn it, understand it so that when it does come out for winter wheat or it does come out for a product that you happen to grow, you understand it. As we've seen over the last several years with ECO and SCO, it slowly ramps up in terms of people taking it. And I would say the number one reason why it gets more people take it is more people understand it. Okay. They used to not understand it, but this year, like Alex mentioned, with that 80% subsidy, A lot of people are going to take it. Now, with MCO, you can layer that on top of SCO, and then underneath that is your regular, or what we call it, base federal crop insurance policy. And I know you can put it on top of stacks as well. Now, can you take it in conjunction with ECO, or is it one or the other?
So the way it's currently designed, it's one or the other. They both cover the same band, 95 to 86, 90 to 86, and that results in mutual exclusivity, where you choose one or the other. But you're right, you can stack it on top of SCO. And again, given incentives and the way the program has operated in recent years, I sincerely believe that almost every producer in the country is going to take SCO this year. So really the choice they're going to make is that enough protection? Does 86% of the prices we're seeing today, particularly if you've had a yield hiccup in the last couple of years, like a lot of my neighbors in the Golden Triangle did, and the early 2020s were not good to us, then what you're seeing is your guarantee is guaranteeing less than it used to. But your costs haven't moved an awful lot. In some cases, they've actually gone higher. And thus, that traditional 75 or 80% RP policy that you've been buying just doesn't offer enough protection to assure that you're able to meet your obligations, pay back your operating note, make your land payments. Even if you're on a share rental arrangement, your landlord's expectations are going to come from somewhere. And if 80% coverage isn't enough, then you need to look at additional tools. SCO will get you to 86, and that's a great step in the right direction. You can pretty much count on doing that. But what do you do about the remaining gap? Well, tools like MCO and ECO provide you the mechanism to fill in that hole and provide you with some of that shallow loss coverage so that another small price decline, another small input cost increase, another hiccup in yield doesn't take you in a situation where you lost money and there's no indemnity on the other side.
One thing I want to make sure that our listeners understand is that Alex and myself aren't here to sell you anything. The goal here is just to educate you, and we could talk till we're blue in the face about what you should take. But at the end of the day, every operation is different. They're all going to manage their risks differently, but understanding what is available, even if MCO is not available for your primary crop, understanding how it works is going to change the way you evaluate your risk that might affect other decisions. So don't just tune out if this isn't something that's applicable to you today, because the better you understand these tools, the better equipped you're going to be.
So, Mike, I need to follow up on one of your points, and I've been asked to make this very clear. The Federal Crop Insurance Corporation's board of directors are the ones who approve new crop insurance products. And I'm a developer. Effectively, I'm an economist who works on behalf of the taxpayers to create these new products. I get not a dime if they sell. If they sell 100,000 acres, if they sell 4 acres, my reimbursement is the same. So my role is not to sell you anything. My role is to create tools and then let you make your own best decisions. We were very fortunate last year. A product we created called ECO sold almost $2 billion in premium. A lot of producers found value in that and took advantage of that to protect their operations. I think over the next couple of years, producers are going to look at their margin situation and find a lot of value in MCO as well.
So in that same vein of educating, kind of at the beginning, what was the original spark or the original problem that led to the development of MCO?
So MCO is, I think, in many ways a follow-on to our previous work on margin protection and our previous work on ECO. And those turn into very long stories, so I'll provide you the really short version. I was sitting in a conference room in Great Falls, Montana, as the most junior employee of Montana Grain Growers Association. And we were walking through with Lola Raska and the executive board of the Grain Growers Association how crop insurance works. And they were a lot of frustration. So I'm just doing a futures price. This doesn't help me very much. And remember, at that time, this is the early 2000s, showing my age. It's not just my hairline that reflects my age. Uh, the crop insurance just had received revenue coverage in the previous year or two for wheat in our part of the world. The average protection that producers were taking was 70% yield-based APH coverage. So they were showing their losses, they were showing their math, and they threw their hands up and said, crop insurance is worthless. It doesn't solve my problem. So we got our pencils out and we started talking about what crop insurance would have to do and be to solve our problems. And as a result of that, we came up with a number of concepts. And first of them were higher coverage levels. Second was higher subsidy rates. And third was the ability to get some form of protection against input cost side. And I have effectively spent my entire career building out on a meeting held in the wheat building in Great Falls, Montana in 2004, trying to solve the problems that we identified with crop insurance. So it started with margin protection. Coming out of being a very junior employee at the grain growers, I was drug into graduate school at Kansas State University. And my major professor was a gentleman named Dr. Art Barnaby. He created crop revenue coverage. And I chose Kansas State hoping that he could show me how to fix crop insurance. And it turned out he could. This man is a tremendous resource. If you get a chance to meet Art Barnaby, please take advantage of it. He walked through the process that they'd undergone to create crop revenue coverage from scratch and basically said, if you've got an idea, don't give up on it, pursue it to the very end. So, partway through my graduate school experience, I wrote a paper called Why Can't I Insure My Operating Costs? Art gave me a B on it, and it became margin protection 2 years later. We were able to work the full concept through the approval process, and ultimately it became available through the FCIC Board of Directors, a new program for the 2016 crop year. So I wrote the thesis in 2005, and it became a program in 2016. That's how long some of these processes take. The wheels of government and the wheels of the approval process were very slow. There was no legal mechanism for them to adopt a concept like this. It took changes to both the 2008 and 2014 farm bills to give Congress the authority to delegate to FCIC to create a program like this and make it available to producers. So that's where margin protection came from. In 2020, I came up with this idea for enhanced coverage option. And there the idea was SCO is pretty good, but it's not enough coverage. We need to offer additional mechanisms. Producers are capped out on an individual basis at 85%. That's in the statute. That's in the law. I don't have the power to change the law. I don't really have the power to influence the law. But what we did find is that the law allows coverage on an area basis to go up to 95%. People who pull out their hair and say, why is this on an area basis? It'd be much better if it worked for my farm, are 100% right. And all they have to do is go change the law. But because I don't have the ability to change the law, I instead thought maybe we would work within the mandate of the law. ECO was created to make SCO better. The reason we called it enhanced coverage option was not because we liked the acronym ECO, but rather because we thought it was an enhancement to what SCO had offered, supplemental coverage option. All the way back to working with Congress in 2014 to create SCO, we knew that it wasn't enough. So we were able to get in 2020 ECO put together, and it immediately became one of the most popular products that was ever launched. So in 2022, I got drug in front of Congress. No story has a happy ending that starts with I got drug in front of Congress. They were trying to renew the 2018 Farm Bill. Some of you who've been in ag space for a long time remembers when they used to do a farm bill every 5 years. It's become kind of a quaint notion over the last decade or so, as it's tremendously difficult to get a new farm bill across the finish line. But in 2022, in our optimism and naivety, we thought that there was going to be a 2023 farm bill. Currently, we're on our second, about to be third extension of that 2018 farm bill. But I was hauled in front of Congress and they said, you created margin protection, you created ECO. People are talking about a margin squeeze. Is there anything you can do to make these tools easier to understand and easier to enroll in and more widely available? So there was to have been language in the now fictional 2023 Farm Bill, there was never such a thing, that would authorize creation of an MCO variant right in the law. But because there was no bill, there was no mechanism to do that. So instead, Senator Stabenow and Senator Bozeman pulled me aside and said, you're going to do this through the 508H process like you did ECO. MCO is just very simply this. It's a bunch of producer groups getting together and lobbying the Senate for better margin-based tools, the Senate being unable to get a law across the finish line, instead asking us to build it directly and take it through administrative channels. And from there, we just spent the next 2.5 years pushing a rock up a very long regulatory hill to get approval. And finally, that'll be implemented here for sales for 2026 crop year. That's the season that we're in right now. That's where MCO came from.
So with MCO, what would you say is the most challenging part of getting farmers to understand it?
It's a gosh darn area plan would be far and away the most difficult thing, particularly in the area where I operate. We in northern Montana have big counties. I'm in Ponderay County, which is not enormous, but we're neighbored by Teton and Choteau counties, which are enormous. And producers are thinking about, okay, my production area in Dutton looks nothing like a production area 40 miles away from me, or even in Choteau. My production area in Flowery looks nothing like it would in Fort Benton or something else. So, how is it that an area based plan that considers yields across my county could ever have value to me? And I think a lot of producers anchor their thought process around hail, this program that doesn't just have unit structure, it ensures every stinking acre. It is extremely small, individualized coverage. And these plans go in the exact opposite direction. This is like trying to catch water in an eyedropper, and a margin protection policy is like trying to measure the tide, right? You can be affected by either of those things, and you know the tide matters for you. But there are places where those waves come way up on the shore, and there are places where they just sort of lap around your ankles. And knowing which it will be on any given year matters a ton for these producers. So, trying to help them understand the relationship between what's happening on their farm and what's happening on a county basis is maybe the biggest challenge. Fortunately, it's only math, and the math is pretty compelling. If you can take a producer's own history and then compare it to what was happening in their county over a period of years, it doesn't take long for them to discover that, hey, a drought tends to hit everyone in my county at the same time. A particularly good crop year tends to be pretty good for everyone at more or less the same time. Those county yields are just a summation of all of the county yields for all of the farmers in the county. So it turns out it does a very good job of measuring most producers' circumstances most of the time. It's never going to offer the level of my farm security that an individual policy would, and I would not encourage anyone to stop or buy down their individual coverage. But it does allow you a vehicle to buy up and get into those shallow loss bands. And again, the whole reason we went on an area basis in the first place is to try and allow access to those higher coverage levels that allow us smaller deductibles and protection from those shallower losses.
So when people are evaluating this program and looking at the different price discovery periods that this program has versus revenue protection or yield protection, when they're evaluating the different preliminary numbers and looking at the offers, what should they keep in mind when trying to figure out how this is going to work for them?
So with an offering like margin coverage option, you've got the advantage of foresight. All of these prices are based off of futures markets, and we're using the same peg, the same contract month on those futures markets for margin based coverages as we are for individual coverages. Right now, we don't know where the price is going to be when we're doing spring discovery. For most spring crops, that means discovery in the month of February. I think that there is some nervousness, particularly if you look at a corn producer's perspective. We just planted the second most number of acres ever, over 98 million acres this last year, the most since 1936. I'm going to say that again, the most in almost 100 years. And that crop looks tremendous. We are going to be piling corn on the dirt this fall. We're going to be piling soybeans on the dirt this fall. Our export situation is not looking great. I don't want to get into a big, complicated trade policy conversation, but there have certainly been years where our export scenarios looked much better than they look right now. And that has got to weigh on our minds. It's got to weigh on our storage plans. And importantly, it's got to weigh on our sense of what our national grain infrastructure is going to look like. I like security. I price my crop aggressively ahead, and I look to take advantage of opportunities where the market delivers me enough that I can meet my obligations. Right now, for a lot of producers, MCO is going to offer a good enough price and a reasonable enough input cost expectation that it makes some sense to pull the trigger on that. Not just because it allows us to meet those expected goals. Crop insurance has a job to do. Its job, very simply, is to allow us to farm another year if things go bad. In northern Montana, where we operate, things go bad about 1 year in 3. Other places, it's maybe 1 year in 5, 1 year in 6, but knowing you've got that assurance allows you to go forward. So crop insurance can do its job right now. So from there, it becomes a decision for you to make. Am I going to take advantage of this opportunity that's available to me right now? Or am I going to wait till spring and make a decision then? I have to choose. I can do MCO now or ECO in the spring, but the ECO offer could be in a very different place by the time we get to spring than we're at today. If this crop comes in as big as is expected across the rest of the nation, if basis continues to fall apart, at some point the futures market is likely to catch up. My biggest fear is the corn price starts with a 3 next year, that the soybean price starts with a 9, or God help us, an 8 next year. If we continue to see some of this downward pressure on wheat markets, as the rest of the world seems less interested in importing our product than they've been in decades. And if we find ourselves by spring in a really rough pricing spot, the crop insurance policies available to us in the spring are going to reflect that. We can't step back and say, boy, yeah, now I will trigger those prices from last fall. So we've got to think, do I take a bird in the hand, or do I hold out and look at a bird in the bush that potentially could come in attractively in the spring? We just don't know, and we can't know. So instead, it's about how much risk am I willing to take and how much risk do I want to take off the board? I'm going to buy crop insurance either way. Which plan makes the most sense for me?
And looking ahead, what does success look like for MCO in the next few years? Is there already conversations about expanding it to more crops and counties if it proves valuable?
There's been a discussion of expansion since before it was launched. Our friends at the National Association of Wheat Growers have been very vocal that margin-based products have been a absolute godsend for other commodities. And while spring wheat is something we've been able to service for margin protection and now for MCO, winter wheat has been very, very difficult. They already feel like wheat competes at a disadvantage to some of the other crops based on the way that those policies work. Are you kidding me? One policy for 6 classes of wheat? That's nonsense. Nonsense. But they've never been able to fix it. So they have instead said, all right, well, at least put us on par with those other crops and give us the same tools. So we're under tremendous pressure to figure out a way to come up with a forward pricing mechanism for wheat using their much thinner markets than we have for other commodities to extend coverage there as well. We can expect that. Also, these products are being launched in the biggest pilot area ever for a first year product. The most county crop offers ever for a first year pilot will be for margin coverage option. That means the board has a lot of faith that this will work well for producers, and they want a lot of producers to have a sense of what's available and take a look at it. That comes at the same time, Congress just made a huge investment. They said, hey, we think crop insurance is the future of risk management, and we're going to pay 80% of your premiums to make it affordable for you producers to proactively participate in your own risk management. That applied to MCO on the year of launch. Think about that in context. Margin protection has a 44% cost share. ECO, the first year it was offered, had a 44. The next year, last year, it had 65%. Now they're bumping that to 80. Congress is voting with their pocketbook, and they're saying, for goodness sake, producers, wouldn't you rather, A, get your revenue from the market, B, have crop insurance, which you can always rely on. And then C, only get disaster program payments if you absolutely need them. They're working proactively to avoid the need for disaster programs going forward. So I think the expectations are very high. My expectations are more modest. We're asking agents to do something that they hate to do, and that's change. We're asking them to have crop insurance conversations in the fall. I can't tell you how many frustrated agent calls I've taken saying, what am I supposed to do? Hop on the combine with my growers and talk to them as they're harvesting about what their product choices should be next year? Frankly, I have no sympathy. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what you should do. Have the conversation now. You owe it to your growers to make sure that they understand what choices are available to them and that they're making the best choices they can. If you're too busy to help your growers, let's go find them an agent who's not. But overall, I think the bottom line story is I expect most agents to say, let's wait for spring. Not necessarily because that's what's in the best interest of the grower, but because that's what works best with their corn, soybeans, Miami rotation.
What is one thing, or I know there's many things, what's one thing or a major piece of advice that you would give to a farmer looking to purchase MCO for the first time?
My number one piece of advice is always the same: make them do the math. Sit down with a crop insurance professional who you trust and make them show you what happens if the events you're most concerned about happens. There are many different tools available to you. ECO, MCO, SCO are relatively new ones, but they're all designed to help you solve a problem. And crop insurance should be seen like any other tool. It's out there to help you solve a specific problem that you have. Don't buy a crop insurance product. Don't use a tool that doesn't solve your problem. But the only way you can know if it's going to solve your problem is to sit down and work the math. All right, agent. All right, crop insurance company. Help me understand what you're offering. And then, if these three things that could happen, what sort of outcome will I get? What will crop insurance do to protect me from these scenarios? What happens if prices fall? What happens if I have a poor yield and the county doesn't? That's a possibility, right? Let's understand exactly what it is we're buying and what we can expect to happen if events occur. The math is there and it's straightforward, and it's their job to show that to you. I think a lot of us have accidentally become crop insurance experts just because that niche isn't being fulfilled the way we'd like. It's not, it shouldn't fall to us as producers to have all of these answers. And it should fall to our agents and our crop insurance companies. And my number one piece of advice is find an agent who can show you what you're getting and match it to what you need. And if your agent can't do that, find one who can.
Is there anything else that you want to add, or anything else you have to want to put out there about MCO or anything?
I just wanted to say, tip my cap to the folks that put us in the spot to do this. And in particular, I got to acknowledge Lola Raska and her work at Montana Grain Growers Association, Dale Schuler, who was the president of the Grain Growers Association at that time. If it weren't for that meeting, none of these products would exist. And it really is about producers thinking about their problems, thinking proactively about solutions, and then generating next steps that allow us to go there. I built a career off of a meeting and four poorly written, almost illegible scraps of paper that came out of that meeting. But the best ideas for new solutions come from farmers because they're the ones who understand their problems the best. This is this generation. There will be another generation of crop insurance products, and they'll be designed to solve another generation's set of problems. So if there is an idea, if there is an itch that the current products just can't scratch, let's have a conversation and let's make sure that this program continues to evolve to be as relevant and useful for you as it possibly could be.
Cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. Appreciate your insight and your expertise. And I hope everyone out there learned half as much as I just learned today.
I got to tell you, my incentives are all jacked up, Mike. I hope that a bunch of my neighbors don't take advantage of these tools and I can rent their dirt. Oh man, I didn't say that. All right. What we're really saying is these tools are going to be a game changer and a differentiator for you. And please make sure you do a good job of protecting yourself because ultimately making the right decisions on this side has a tremendous implication on where you are at the end of a year.
From my family to yours, thank you for tuning in. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and share with a neighbor. Visit www.cropinsurancepodcast.com for more episodes, articles, and tools. For full policy details, always check the crop insurance provisions or speak with your local crop insurance agent. This institution is an equal opportunity provider and employer.